The Golden State Warriors are one of the greatest dynasties ever assembled. 4 championships in the last 8 years, 6 finals appearances in that time frame. What they have been able to do in revolutionizing the game of basketball has been nothing short of amazing. But, like the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. But unfortunately for the Warriors, they're really clinging on to what they currently have and not letting go until it's probably too late. And while I get it, while you still have Steph Curry playing at an elite level, you do everything you can to go all in and try to win another championship. But with that comes a price. The price of not considering your future and what you're building for a future beyond Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, and it's what we'll be talking about in this video. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, when the Warriors won their championship in 2022, going into the offseason, most knew that guys like Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole, they were going to be getting big bags given their production and impact to helping the Warriors win a title. But going into that season, a lot of fans and analysts had talked about how that upcoming year was going to be the Warriors' last dance, with the big three now heading into their mid-30s, Draymond Green potentially playing his last season with the Warriors with a player option on the final year of his deal, and with the increased competition throughout the NBA, it was felt by most that this would be their last opportunity to win a title together. Well, of course, Jordan Poole did receive a fat 4-year, $140 million contract extension. Wiggins also received a big extension, although not as much as Poole at 4 years, $109 million. The Warriors had an up and down year throughout that season, played very well at home, but were historically bad on the road. And when it came to playoff time, they lost in the second round to the Lakers in 7 games, losing to a team that would go on to get swept by the eventual NBA champions. Now, I know some people will say, never count out the Golden State Warriors. People were counting out the Warriors when Kevin Durant left the team, and look what happened. They went on to win a championship. Well, a little bit different circumstances now. One, the guys are older, meaning the big three. Age, mileage that you have under your belt, especially with all the playoff runs over the years that they've had, is real, and we saw that have an impact on the Warriors last season, especially when playing on the road. But also, the fact that the Western Conference is considerably better now. In 2022, the Warriors were fortunate enough to go up against an injured Nuggets team in the first round that didn't have Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. They beat the Grizzlies in 6 games. John Morant got injured in that one. And then instead of facing the Suns, because the Suns bombed in that series against the Mavericks, they went against a Mavericks team that quite frankly had no business in being in the Western Conference Finals. Fast forward to now. The Suns are better. The Nuggets obviously are better. They just won a championship after finally being fully healthy. And for the Warriors, are they, as currently constructed, better than a team like the Lakers? For the most part, they kept their team intact and they beat the Warriors in the playoffs last season. Are they better than the Kings? I know they took them out in the first round, but it was a hard-fought series that went to 7 games. And we know the Kings, a young, inexperienced team, are going to come back hungrier than ever with more confidence and more experience than last season. What about the Clippers? Are the Warriors better than them, especially if Kawhi and Paul George stay healthy, which I know is a big if? And who knows, they might be adding James Harden to the roster. I wouldn't even rule out a team like the Dallas Mavericks if they can finally get their act together and Luka goes on a tear for an MVP level season. But look, the point is, the West is much more competitive than ever. Yes, the Warriors still have Steph. Yes, they're still going to be a great team, but are they really good enough to actually come out of the West as currently constructed and win another NBA championship? But above all of this, because yes, the Warriors can and will still be good for this upcoming year, their biggest mistake, particularly with how they're addressing this offseason, is that they're not thinking about their future whatsoever. I shouldn't say whatsoever because it's a GM's job to always be thinking about the long term when it comes to building their franchise, but their actions would say otherwise, and it starts with the contract they just handed out to Draymond Green. Now, there was speculation whether Draymond was going to be returning to the team after the Warriors got eliminated. That grew even more after Draymond declined his player option to become an unrestricted free agent. But at the end of the day, I think most knew that by him declining that option, it meant he would actually be looking to re-up with the Warriors for a longer-term, more lucrative deal. For Draymond to go to another contender, he would have to take a pay cut, and with the little to no cap space the other contending teams had, it just wasn't going to be feasible. And of course, when free agency opened, Draymond was one of the first players to be announced and having agreed to a new contract. And for me personally, I was blown away with the figure the Warriors signed him to. I am fully aware that I am in the minority in this opinion. I know that most feel Draymond is worth every penny of that 4-year, $100 million contract extension, but here is the problem with that contract that I think a lot of people are not considering. Look, I get that you reward your players for everything they've done for the organization. Draymond was obviously a huge piece in those 4 championships with the Warriors. It's very unlikely the Warriors win all 4 of those titles without him. He's been with the team since he was drafted back in 2012. He's been the heart and soul of that team. I get it. You pay for loyalty. You take care of your players that have done so much for the team over the years. But here's what gets me. Draymond Green is 33 years old. He's going to be turning 34 going into this next season. By the time that contract expires, he's going to be 37 years old. And what makes this contract even worse is that the Warriors gave him a player option on the final year of that deal. When he's 37 years old, $25 million a year, and you give him a player option on the final year of that deal. I know the salary cap is increasing and it will continue to increase, but do you think Draymond Green's value is really going to be that high for the next 4 years? Maybe next year, maybe the year after that. But beyond that, you think he's going to be playing at this level? And at that point, you run into a situation where the contract isn't even tradable when you've got Draymond Green making $25 million a year in his mid-30s and well past his prime. Draymond Green is still a great player as of right now, don't get me wrong. Still one of the better defenders in the league. You can't teach hustle. He's always going to give 100% on the floor no matter what. But even now, at his age, he is showing signs of decline. Not as quick on defense as he once was, committing more fouls than he used to when he gets beat off the dribble, was never really a scorer, we all knew that, but even then, his efficiency has dropped off on the offensive end. And are we also going to forget that Draymond can kind of be a liability on the court with his antics and getting hot-headed, technical fouls, or even suspensions for some of his dirty plays? Not only that, but who exactly were the Warriors bidding against here? No team, at least not a contending team anyway, was going to be able to offer Draymond Green that kind of contract because they couldn't. No team had the kind of salary cap space to offer him that kind of deal. Now, sure, maybe the Houston Rockets would have thrown big money at Draymond because they actually had the money to spend, and they did in fact do that by signing both Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks to very sizable contracts. But we know that Draymond's not going to want to go to a rebuilding team. Not at this stage in his career. He wants a chance to further his legacy and win more titles. Why offer him a $100 million contract at his age when you know full well no team is even going to come close in trying to steal him away at that amount? And I get it. I know loyalty contracts are a thing in the NBA, but this is a risky loyalty contract when you factor in that it's 4 years, fully guaranteed, and you're giving him a player option at age 37. And more importantly, the fact that you're putting all of your eggs in one basket and going all in to try and win with the Warriors crew while Steph is still at the helm. You're paying Steph a max contract through 2026, where he'll be making close to $60 million by the time he's 38. Andrew Wiggins is under contract until 2027 when he's 32. He also has a player option on the final year of that deal. And then Klay Thompson, he's going into the final year of his current contract at $43 million, but there's no doubt in my mind that he'll be getting extended on a fairly long-term deal because, again, loyalty, also keeping the continuity of the big three together to try and win as many championships as possible before these guys ride off into retirement. But again, even with the big three getting older, starting to show signs of decline, at least in Draymond and Klay Thompson anyway, Steph is still playing out of his mind, but with the big three, are they even going to be good enough to win a championship when you look at the landscape of the Western Conference, especially now seeing how the Denver Nuggets have arrived with their core being young and in their prime? And so when you take a step back and you look at the Warriors trying to build beyond the Steph Curry era, what's the contingency plan should things not work out? Say one of the big three gets injured or just sees a massive drop-off in their play, which I might add is definitely possible considering their age and the number of NBA minutes they have under their belt. What is the backup plan here? What does the second timeline look like? Well, that's the problem here. There really isn't one. The Warriors traded away Jordan Poole, which, don't get me wrong, they had to do. He clearly wasn't meshing well with the team after the Draymond punch. The vibe was just not there all season, and he was on that horrendous contract that Bob Myers gave him. He had to go. But trading him for Chris Paul was not it, especially when you consider you had to give up a first and second round pick just to get off of his contract. You'd have to think there was a better trade out there, especially considering it was assumed by most that Chris Paul was going to be waived or bought out by the Wizards, and then the Warriors could have just picked him up off the buyout market. But either way, they trade Jordan Poole, one of their few younger players, for a 38-year-old Chris Paul. They just lost Dante DiVincenzo in free agency. They do have Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, both young players who have shown some flashes of potential, but for the most part have been pretty underwhelming relative to where they were drafted. And not only that, by focusing on trying to win now with this crew, their development, meaning Kuminga and Moody, their reps and their minutes on the court is being stunted. Andrew Wiggins and Kevon Looney, both players in their late 20s and in their primes, and yes, these guys can kind of bridge the gap between the older core and the young talent. And while I like Wiggins, I do still think he's the second best player on this team. Is Wiggins a guy you can really build this franchise around when Curry and co retire? I mean, part of the reason Wiggins has finally seen success in being on the Warriors is because he's not needing to be a number one option. He can take more of a backseat role and thrive in a system where the offense is focused around Steph Curry. And look, even by that time, say Steph, Klay, Draymond, they retire or they get to the point where they're no longer playing at a high level, by then, Wiggins is going to be in his early 30s. he's not going to be a long-term sustainable option for them as well. So at some point, you have to ask yourself, where does the future of this team go? What does the future of this team look like? They've got big money committed and guaranteed to both Steph and now Draymond that will pay them into their late 30s. I'm almost certain they're going to give Klay Thompson a similar level deal that Draymond got when he's up for an extension next offseason that will pay him into his late 30s. So you're getting to a point where you're going to be paying all three of these guys massive money at the tail end of their careers and being hamstrung by the salary cap for a team that is already spending well into the luxury tax. And with the new rules of the CBA, which doesn't favor high-spending teams and takes away their ability to use other exceptions like the full mid-level exception to bring in other free agents, and really only gives them the ability to sign players on vet-min deals, it puts the Warriors in a situation where not only are they not thinking about their future of the roster, but also not taking into account the ramifications of the new CBA and how that will impact their ability to make meaningful moves as a high-spending team with most of the payroll committed to their older players. And let me be clear, because I get that it's annoying when YouTubers do this as if they know more than GMs of professionally run franchises, or acting like these guys haven't considered every avenue or that this was their only path forward. I'm sure that that wasn't the case, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that the Warriors, without a clear direction and plan for their future beyond Steph, could very well mean that they're looking at being a lottery team for years to come once Steph rides off into the sunset, which isn't that far off, by the way. He is going to be 36 this upcoming season. But let me know what you guys think. What do you think of the Warriors and their future beyond the big three? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.